been a lot of stuff going on lately, hasn't there?
There has been.
It's been pretty crazy out there.
True
Happy
dat.
New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Since this is this the first podcast we put out in the new year? I don't know. Maybe.
Ish.
I think it's definitely the first one we've recorded in the new year, I think. Anyhow.
Yeah.
Happy New Year all. Happy 2025. And what a crazy 2025 it's been so far, hasn't it?
Yes.
It's been some crazy stuff happening in the world. What's going on?
There's wildfires. Are the drones still a thing in 2025, or was that the end of 2024?
No, from what I have seen in a couple of different sources, a couple of different places, they are still happening. It's still going on, but it's just not being reported anymore by mainstream media. So whatever that psyop was, where they had to report it and build up that hysteria for a while, they've moved on to other things now. But that is still going on.
We didn't talk about the drones, though.
We did not talk about the drones. That is a fact.
So there's just something I think that is interesting I want to share with people, because that was happening in New Hampshire. Where we are too.
It was.
And there was reports of them spraying something.
Yes.
And I had said to Alex, how genius would it be if they're spraying stuff and all it is like water? It's just like a mist of water. And what a panic it could induce, because people would physically manifest psychosomatic symptoms based off what they believe is in that mist, so to speak, that's being sprayed. Like whoever is doing it wouldn't even have to do anything, because people could just manifest these symptoms themselves.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even really have to do much. Just put a thought or an idea out there and people can just create something from it, be it good or bad.
Yes. And speaking of that, like so the drone things, it's still happening. They're still being spotted, and they're still around in New Jersey, New York, from what I've seen. Although, again, like I said, it's not on the news anymore. It's not being reported anymore. None of the politicians, no one really on social media or anything's talking about it anymore. But they're still out there. They're still being cited. So whatever's going on is still going on, whatever they are, whatever you believe or think. I don't even want to get into what I think, because whatever. But then you had the mysterious fog that apparently is back again. That's just kind of sweeping around in certain parts of the country,
right,
and people are getting sick from that.
People are getting sick. It's
respiratory
even like weird
diseases or respiratory illnesses. Excuse me. Yeah, a lot of people having a very difficult time with that. They're finding like residue in their swimming pools and in puddles on the ground when after this fog rolls through. It's like some kind of a chemical fog. It appears.
We had a lot of fog a few weeks back too, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary.
I don't think, the fog we had up here, I think, was more of a natural fog. Yeah. I don't think it coincided with what everybody else was talking about, I think.
But we're up in the mountains.
But we're also up in the mountains, so we get a lot of fog. It just happens.
Yeah.
So I don't think our fog, even though it was around the same time that people were going through and actually, matter of fact, it's happening again. So whatever was happening a few weeks ago was happening again around the country. And it's just in the United States from everything I've seen. So what's that? What's that about? Is that some kind of a biological weapon that's being deployed on the people? Like, what is that?
And if you've listened to our previous episodes, we've gone over experiments the government has done, United States government has done on its own people without their knowledge and consent. So they do it.
Is it the government? Is it a corporation?
Is it a corporation who pays the government to let them do it?
To look the other way? Yeah, who knows? I don't know.
We don't know.
Did you see, speaking of government, the FDA just banned red dye number 3?
I saw that. I saw that today.
That? Yeah, so the parting shot from the outgoing president, he decided, maybe I'll do something positive. Take some of the steam out of the incoming administration. Take some of their glory. Because that's one of the first things that would have been gone with the new administration coming in.
And you know what else I saw was that they were talking about they want to put on the nutrition labels on the front of boxes of things, but they want to point out like how much saturated fat, how much sugar. But the problem is with that, like sure, that sounds great. But the real problem is you need to look at the ingredients. What are the ingredients? And it didn't specifically say that was going to be on the front. It was pointing out like how much sugar and saturated fat and things like that. So I'm curious because the real thing is you got to read the ingredients and stuff.
Well, do you remember that 2 years ago, the FDA made it so that nutrition labels now, they're not required. They're not mandatory anymore. So if you're still seeing them on products, that's a courtesy that company's doing for you. They don't even have to put it on there anymore. Legally, they don't have to do it anymore. Unless that gets reversed now with the new incoming administration.
And I've seen that with animal feed because when our chicken feed wasn't available, I was searching for other kinds and there are so many and I go to read the ingredients and it doesn't list the ingredients, or it's very like generic explaining like wheat product, natural product. Like what?
That could be anything.
It could be anything.
That could be feces because that's a natural product. It's
okay, not buying crazy. That. Like I want to know what my chickens are eating.
So that's another thing. What was another crazy? We mentioned the wildfires that are happening in California, and that's very unfortunate. There's so many stories about that. You don't know what to believe. All I know is it sucks. And that's an obvious statement in one, but that's really the only one I feel comfortable making because I don't live there. I'm not familiar with the local politics. I know what's reported. I know what people say, but I don't feel comfortable talking about my opinion on it because I don't think I'm informed enough because I don't live there. But you hear a bunch of different stories about local government incompetence, local officials incompetence, bureaucracy, red tape, things like that. You hear all kinds of things. But again, not being there, I'm not a firefighter. I don't know the area. I don't know anything that goes into it. So I don't feel comfortable commenting other than saying anybody that's out there, whoever they are, whether they're rich, famous, not famous, whatever, if you live out there and you lost your house in a fire, that sucks.
That's awful.
And it's too bad. And I hope that, and any loss of life and anything, I just hope that everybody,
animals included,
ends up on their, exactly.
Like
I hope everybody ends up on their feet from this.
Because like that's the other thing, like people's pets, if like, you hear stories about people who weren't home when the evacuation happened, their pets were at home. So yeah, it's just like stuff, it doesn't matter, like politics aside, theories aside, like people lost lives, they lost their homes, their pets, stuff like that. So that just, regardless of what it is, it stinks.
Yeah, regardless of the reason, whether it was incompetence, whether it was done intentionally, whether it was accidental, you're hearing all kinds of stories from every side of the political aisle, from people that are not political. You hear all kinds of stuff. It just, at the end of the day, it sucks, no matter what the reason was. Hopefully it was not a nefarious reason, but it doesn't matter if it was or wasn't. The fact is it happened. It's still happening as we record this, and hopefully that it ends soon and that people, anybody affected, everyone affected can end up on their feet. I know the federal government's giving everyone $700 or whatever. So, I mean, that should help.
Well, so
jeez.
The other part of that was about how insurance policies were being canceled up to like the year before. And I was reading recently in the past like week or two on the news about how insurance rates are going up everywhere.
Sure.
And that happened to us. We just, switched over last year to a different company for home insurance, and next year comes up and it's going up a lot. And we're like, why is everything going up so much? But it's happening nationally. And when insurance companies can dictate what coverage you get and how they're going to cover you and then charge you an arm and a leg for less coverage, that's a problem. But again, we've been saying it for years and years. We, the people, need to stand up, and we all together need to fight these things and stand up and speak out. Waiting for one or two people to do it, they're going to get silenced. It has to be everybody. We all got to be on the same page. So that's the thing. It's like we're always going to get taken advantage of
100%
if we don't all stand together. And that's why I think there's so much decisiveness, because it's to keep us.
Decisiveness? Do you mean
I'm sorry,
divisiveness?
Divisiveness.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure.
No, thank you. You were picking up what I was putting down. Thank you.
Yes.
There's so much divisiveness because they, it's like you want to keep us fighting with each other. We're too busy doing that to come together and realize like, hey, we're being taken advantage of. But that's a soapbox for another story for another day.
Yeah. And of course, the big story is we got less than a week. We're going to have a new president.
Yeah.
Will be inaugurated. Is he going to make it? He's already had 2 attempts on his life. So is he going to make it? I think so.
His cabinet picks were very interesting.
I didn't really look at a lot of those. The only one I really paid attention to was the RFK Jr. because of the FDA, like putting him in charge of food and drug and all that stuff, because that guy actually, his entire career has always been on the side of common sense and natural medicine and natural health and against chemicals and foods and all, common sense type stuff. So I hope that he does some positive and some good. But again, I think I talked with you about this privately. It doesn't matter. Any changes he makes, to see any kind of institutional change, it doesn't happen in 4 years. It's going to take like a decade of consistent change and effort by the people in charge. And they all, of course, have to be on the same page in order for there to be any kind of change. It's going to take like a decade. But hopefully it's a step in the right direction. Hopefully it continues after this administration.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
I mean, the thing is, everyone's like, oh, Trump's our savior. And then it's like, you look at some of the people he picked in his cabinet, and it's like, seriously? It's just like, why? Why these people? They're not good people. They don't, I don't get it all. But again, to me, it's all a dog and pony show.
It all is.
Yeah. So
100%.
I don't get I don't put too much energy into it.
I try not to become too, for that
It
reason.
is what it is.
It's,
And
But
then.
Go ahead.
I'll go on.
No, it's okay.
I was going to say the other thing is TikTok.
Oh yeah, TikTok. That's
TikTok.
as we're recording this on January the 16th, and this will probably come out on
for this coming
weekend. So Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Keeping things current.
So as of this Sunday, what's the date on Sunday? Is that the 19th?
The 19th.
The 19th. There's supposed to be a ban in the United States on TikTok. And I have it on my phone, but I never go on the darn thing. I think I've looked at it like once. So I never use it, but I know you like to use it. Well, apparently it's going to be gone as of Sunday. It's going to be banned in this country. Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean you just can't download it anymore?
I thought I read it's going to have a thing linking to the website about like the issues, like why.
Is that what it's going to be?
It's not available. I thought I read that. The thing is, it's like, I'm not good at using social media. Not that I'm not good at it. I'd rather invest my time in other things in real life, day to day.
Yeah,
not
things that matter.
On my phone or computer.
Yes.
I use it for like my Organite, my tarot, my hypnotherapy. And then like I like going on for like looking at stuff for baking, gardening, the stuff I'm into. But yeah, like this is another outlet. But everyone's like, I feel like TikTok has its pros and its cons. You can definitely hear from more people without getting that shadow banned kind of algorithm. And like for me, I do find a lot of really cool people. But again, my interests are like baking, chickens, gardening, homesteading, stuff like that. But there is censorship in TikTok, whether you realize it or not. But I'm kind of in a little TikTok bubble with the stuff that I like. And I don't know. It's like, it is what it is. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I'm not super invested in social media.
Yeah. I mean, from everything I've seen from other people, again, because I don't use the thing, so I don't know, but apparently it is very censored on certain topics and things. And it's not really, I mean, the people that are saying, no, it should stick around are saying we should stick around because of free speech, but okay. That's one way of looking at it, I suppose. However, if they're censoring anyway, then who cares? Just get rid of it.
But it's not, I don't think, censorship like you have to watch what you say for certain words.
It's certain things.
But
certain
at the same time, like,
talk about, they get censored.
there are things that, like, that's how people find out about stuff. The conspiracy theories that aren't actually conspiracy theories but real, like, that stuff gets moved around so more people find out about it. So that's a bonus, but... Now everyone's talking about Red Note and Blue Sky. And it's
Blue Sky is the Twitter alternative, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny because the main two that people are talking about, blue and red, again, more divisiveness, blue and red. Yeah. Pick your political side. But the Red Note is owned by a Chinese-based company.
So it's another Chinese company. And I looked at it and because I was like, what's this Red Note? What the heck is this? And I looked and I saw... Like if you go into the app, like I have an iPhone, so I go into the Apple App Store and it's all in Mandarin, Chinese. It's all it's not in English. So you can't even read the descriptions or anything because it's in Mandarin.
You don't know what you're agreeing
So
to.
then if you go and you I did not, but if you were to download it on your phone before you use it, before you use any app, you have to read the terms and services agreement and you have to accept it. So this one is in Mandarin. How are you supposed to accept it? Like, how are you supposed to know what it, unless you read Mandarin, how do you know what you're agreeing to? And so people, I guess, are flocking to this thing because they're awaiting the TikTok ban to go through. And this is most like TikTok. So people that like that platform are going to this. So the people that are saying, well, you shouldn't use it because of national security and because it's a Chinese company, yada, yada. Well, ironically, you're pushing all these people that you are into another Chinese app, which is like, wow. Okay.
And speaking of user terms and agreements, again, we've done a show about it. Like, read what you agree to, because you don't know what is in the fine print. And you came across a game.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I didn't see this personally because I'm not a big video gamer, but I was listening to an interview with somebody who came across this because they're a big gamer and they actually were reading the terms and services agreement of this game. And I'm sorry, for the life of me, I cannot remember the game. However, in the terms and services agreement, it says, very small print, way down in the middle of this thing, you pledge your allegiance and your soul to the deity of, and it was something that it was very closely resembling Baal, Baal, that demon or entity or deity, whatever it is. And that was in the terms and services agreement. So how many other things have that in there? Like, because who reads these things? We do.
I do.
Yeah, we do. We'll go through and we'll read it. Like
it'll take an hour sometimes.
Sometimes longer.
Yeah.
Like we just got a new TV for one of our boys at Christmas time, and we sat there and I looked through the terms and it's a freaking LG TV, and I sat and looked through all of it because I don't know what any of this stuff is.
We don't.
I want to see. I want to see what we're agreeing to.
And was it the episode, I always feel like somebody's watching me, that we did where we talked about, was it Comcast that's like basically saying by using our equipment, you agree to let us listen in on your conversations.
Yeah.
We can watch you through any cameras.
Yeah.
You don't know what rights you're giving away of yours. And that is why it's so important. Like, who's getting your data, like the privacy stuff, even on apps. There's so many apps. Somebody's like, oh, this game is so fun. And I look at it, I'm like, they're going to take all my information. They're going to sell it. No, I'm not getting that. But you don't know who's taking your information, what information they're taking. Are they listening to you? Are they watching you? Are they, selling that to third parties? A lot of platforms say, like, if you upload your picture on here, we have rights to it. We can sell it. We can market with it. There's so many things that people aren't aware because they don't read that fine print. They don't read those terms and conditions, these agreements. So that was something really interesting too. And going with that red note of.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too, like with like voice remotes and things like that. You don't realize it, when you're using that, that's part of the terms and services agreement. If you look at some of those, they can use your voice. And I read it in the LG TV that we just got for our son. They can use the voice that you use to give the commands to whatever for your TV to do whatever. They can use it in development of their AI and who knows what else. But that was one of the ones that I was like, no. And I just told him, I go, you don't use the voice.
We don't.
Just use your fingers and take the 3 or 4 keystrokes to get to wherever you need to go. You don't need to talk into it. And he was fine with it. He's fine with that. But that's the thing. It's like, and again, going back to the Comcast one, and actually any people that have cameras in their home for security purposes and things like that, realize that anybody can look at those, especially the company that installed them. They can look at those at any time. The person that installed them for you, unless you did it yourself, they can look into your home whenever you want. So it's funny because you have people that have cameras like in every room of their house, and it's like you have no privacy. Like you're literally giving somebody, it's an open door into your home.
Yeah.
And I know some people do it because they want to keep an eye on their kids or their pets when they're at home and that kind of thing. I get it. But it's like, know what you're agreeing to. Know what you're giving up. If you're okay with it, hey, that's on you. That's you. Do you. That's great. But I think so many people do it for the convenience and for the peace of mind, and they don't realize the cost.
Yeah.
That's what's concerning.
Things to be aware of for 2025.
Yeah. So why don't we get into our...
Really quick, I just want to say, if you haven't listened to Karen Rontowski's podcast, Paranormal Karen, she did her annual end of year. She has a show for tarot predictions or predictions for the upcoming year. So it was 2025 predictions. And there's a bunch of people on there. I'm on there giving my predictions. I did it a little different. I did a hypnotherapy session on myself, and I was shown things to come. So I go out on a limb with some stuff, but it's very interesting. But take a listen, and there's a lot of good stuff in there.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, we decided to do another cursed objects, haunted and cursed objects.
We said we were going to come back with more.
Yeah.
We did say that.
And
so this
there's
is part 2.
There's still so many more.
So we'll probably have a part 3 eventually as well.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into that because this is fascinating. Mm-hmm. Oh, I get to go first today. All right, so we're going to talk first about Busby's Stoop chair. This chair is one that just might kill you if you sit in it. The story claims a petty criminal, Thomas Busby, lived in North Yorkshire, England in the 1600s. He became partners with another criminal, Daniel Audie, and he married Audie's daughter, Elizabeth. It is believed Audie purchased a farm in Leeds to accommodate his illegal activities. Audie named the farm Donati Hall and allegedly built a hidden chamber in the home that connected to a secret passageway to the cellar. Busby owned a small inn near Sandhutton, which was 3 miles from Donati Hall. It's said that Busby and Audie had a very heated argument on the day of Audie's death. During the argument, Audie sat in Busby's favorite chair, which upset him even more, so he physically forced Audie out of the chair. Later that evening, Busby, still angered by the argument, made his way to Donati Hall and bludgeoned Audie to death with a hammer. Busby hid Audie's body in the woods, but people became suspicious of Audie's sudden disappearance. Makes sense. A search was made and Audie's body was discovered. Busby was arrested and charged with the murder. In 1702, Busby was convicted of the murder of Audie and was sentenced to death. He was supposed to be hung from a gibbet. Then his body would be dipped in tar and gruesomely displayed in front of his inn, still connected to the gibbet. The inn remained until 2012, renamed Busby Stoop Inn. It's said Busby was allowed one last drink in his favorite chair before his execution. When he finished his drink and was taken from the chair, he screamed a final warning that anyone who sat in the chair after his death would die. The other way some people believed the curse came upon the chair was him shouting it shortly before he was hung from the gibbet. His spirit was also believed to be haunting his beloved inn, but the chair has been the main focus. The first recorded death that has been linked to the chair took place after a man and his friend sat in it during their visit to the pub. They both became intoxicated, and one of them decided to sleep on the road that night, never making it home. His body was found in the morning, hung from a tree near where the gibbet was. The friend he had been with admitted to robbing, then murdering the man, but he did not reveal this until he was on his deathbed. The next significant one was during the late 1960s when 2 airmen dared each other to sit in the chair, unassuming of the fate they would suffer hours later. That night, when they were on their way home, their car ran off the road and hit a tree. Both men died on their way to the hospital. Some other honorable mentions include someone falling through the roof of a building, a woman suffering a brain tumor, a heart attack, and many more vehicular accidents. All of these took place shortly after people sat in the chair, and all of them ended in death. The chair can be linked to around 60 deaths. Now, upon further investigation, there was a historian who studied the oak chair and determined it originated in 1840, 138 years after Busby's death. We could only find someone writing about it, but giving no details. Dr. Adam Bowitt, a historian who focuses on English furniture made between 1660 and 1840, examined the chair in the early 2000s. He concluded, based on the chair's construction and materials as well as other techniques, he determined that the chair is consistent with furniture making practices of the late 17th century, adding credibility to the story. So
it's kind of like somebody had said, well, somebody looked at it. It's not from that time period, so none of it's real. But then somebody who there's actual credentials for, a name, a date.
But it's funny
looked
that.
At it.
So when was the first recorded death that we know of? Well, obviously it was after Busby died. I get that, but I mean, it doesn't say when the first recorded death was. Were you able to come across that information?
I thought I put when it was in there. It does say when, and it was a while back.
So like shortly after he died?
I don't know if it was shortly after. And the chair itself, after so long, they have it in the inn, but it's like hung up on the wall.
So you can't sit in it anyway.
No.
Okay. I was going to say, like, it seems like a lot of these, they're pretty easily explainable, and they just happen to be coincidental.
We don't believe in coincidences.
Yeah, but some of these, it's like, okay, all right, so so the chair's located at an inn and a bar. So people that are sitting in it are drinking. Hello? The one with the guy that, the guy that admitted to murdering his friend. Well, yeah, okay, obviously he admitted to murdering his friend. That you can't link that to the chair. That doesn't.
The chair made him do it.
Yeah,
maybe Busby's ghost.
Yeah, okay.
Took over.
I guess if you want to take that route, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I believe that one. I mean, if the guy said it, which again, if this happened in the late 1600s, like how are you going to prove it? It's just again hearsay, stories passed down from generation to generation. You ever play the game of telephone when you were a kid? Think about it. Like this has been happening now for hundreds of years with this chair, and it's got a backstory. And if nothing else, it's a talking point for people that go and visit this inn. But you can't sit in it now anyway. So good luck proving that that's why all these people died. Like I'm sorry, a cancer, a tumor, car accidents.
Well, that's like when we did the Bulgarian phone number. It was one of those things where look at the people involved.
Yeah.
Like they were probably gonna die regardless.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I don't know if I it's a good story, but I don't know if I believe that the chair itself is actually a cursed object.
Is it a manifestation of people who sit in the chair and then think, oh, something bad is going to happen to me? So
I could see that being a possibility. That to me is more believable than just this chair has supernatural powers.
Or
it's
haunted.
Or it's haunted or whatever. But again, it makes for a great story, if nothing else. So, all right.
It's a way to bring
it's an interesting one.
Tourists in.
I guess. If people, I think it's just something for tourists. If you can point out to tourists if they come in. I don't think it's somebody's going to go to this inn just because of a cursed chair.
Yeah.
That's probably a very small percentage of their clientele go there just for that. But what do we got next?
The next one I have is the Crying Boy painting.
All right.
The Crying Boy painting was made by Italian painter Giovanni Bragoli, whose real name was Bruno Amadio. He was also allegedly known to go by the name Francois Savelle on occasion, and he lived from 1911 to 1981. The Crying Boy was actually a series of at least more than 65 portraits that depicted young children crying. It's thought that Amadio sold them as a reminder of the orphans of World War II. The paintings were so popular that they were mass-produced and most widely distributed in the 1950s and onwards. According to Medium.com, One September morning in 1985, British residents opened their copies of The Sun, a popular newspaper, to find an astonishing article. "Blazing Curse of the Crying Boy," read the headline. According to the story, Ron and Mary Hall lost their home to a fire when a frying pan burst into flames. Although the whole house was destroyed, one item remained: a print of a painting of a crying boy. Ron Hall's brother Peter, who was a fireman, claimed that this wasn't the first time this had occurred. Peter stated that he had witnessed many fires in which everything was ruined except for the crying boy painting. The response to the article was overwhelming. Within a day, hundreds of readers had reached out to the newspaper claiming to be jinxed by the painting. How could one painting cause such an uproar? It all began in the 1950s. A Spanish artist named Giovanni Bragolini made a series of paintings that depicted a young child crying. He sold those paintings to tourists as a reminder of the orphans of World War II. Oddly enough, people in England, especially young couples, grew fond of these paintings. Mass prints of the paintings were sold across the country. After the story was published, people were seized with hysteria. The legend grew bigger as imaginations ran wild. Some people claimed that the painting had caused the death of family members. Others reported that when they tried to burn the prints, the painting would not catch on fire. Even restaurants with crying boy prints were burned to the ground. Firefighter Alan Wilkinson asserted that the fires were not supernatural events and were the result of carelessness. However, he admitted that he had noted more than 50 crying boys fires since 1973. Eventually, enough was enough. With people desperate to get rid of their copies of the painting, Calvin Mackenzie, editor of The Sun, came up with a solution. He told the readers to send in their paintings and that The Sun would destroy them once and for all. On Halloween, newspaper staff burned more than 2,500 copies of the painting. As time passed, the original frenzy died down, but that hasn't stopped people from adding their own pieces to the legend. One story claims that the boy in the painting was an orphan living in Madrid. Despite a priest's warning that fires broke out wherever the boy went, the artist decided to adopt the child. Sometime later, the artist's studio burned down. The little boy ran away, never to be seen again. Was there something sinister about this painting, or was it all the media spectacle designed to attract readers? Regardless of whether or not the crying boy was truly evil, its tale lives on in infamy. Now, that's an article from medium.com, and I just want to make reference about the things that they said, because while I was looking into this painting, I read that the artist, Bruno Amadio, based his painting on a child in Madrid, a mute orphan by the name of Don, I'm going to try to say it right, Bonillo. And that a Catholic priest told Amadio that the boy witnessed his parents die in a fire and ran away after it happened. And allegedly, Don Bonillo died in 1976 when his car crashed on the outskirts of Barcelona and had exploded with Bonillo trapped inside. And there were other articles claiming that Amadio's studio and apartment caught fire and that the paintings were blamed for this. However, upon further investigation, I found there's a website about Amadio, and it says that he picked his child models from schools and newspapers, and he did not make them cry, but added the tears in. And it also says that Amadio never used the name Francois Savelle, and the website said that he made anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 paintings of crying children. So there's a lot of basically debunking these rumors about all these fires and the backstory about the artist. A British writer and comedian, Stephen Punt, investigated the Crying Boy paintings and surmised the prints were made with fire retardant varnish, explaining why it wouldn't burn. And another investigation suggested that Amadeo's use of compression board would also explain why it's difficult to burn. But the thing with that is that's just what they basically guessed when they tried to investigate it themselves. So it's possible whatever the prints were printed in were something that had some type of fire retardant material, which made it difficult to burn. But in regards to Amado's actual paintings, whatever he painted it on, that has nothing to do with the prints. So I don't know if they're trying to say the compression board was on the prints, because the artist has nothing to do with the mass production.
Right.
So it's just very interesting. There's a lot of different stories, but nothing really able to be proven. And when you're going on a website that is either coming from the artist or somebody who has involvement with the artist and it's their own website debunking these stories, that to me gives a little more validity than just these articles from different rando websites that say, oh yeah, and it said this. Well, that's a lot of the legend that kind of adds fuel to the fire, pun intended, of this. But it's very possible. Again, especially back in the 50s, we didn't have the fire prevention we have now.
Yeah.
People, didn't necessarily have smoke detectors. They didn't have the safety appliances. Fires happen, especially if people are being careless. A lot of people cooking with grease, fat, things like that. That can cause fires, grease fires. So you never know. Could it just be a coincidence because it was so highly mass produced? So many homes had them.
I'd lean towards that personally.
It's possible.
That's what I would say. I don't know about it being cursed. It's funny we're doing all these and we're just debunking them all.
I know. I was just thinking that.
Are we gonna get anything that actually are legit?
But here's the thing: if I'm going to research something, as fun and fantastical as it is to want to go along with the stories, I can't just settle for that. I need to try to find what's the real story here. So I try to look for everything that I can to get information. And if I pull a thread that makes it sound like it's BS, well, I'm going to keep pulling it and look into it, because I'm not going to put something on our show just because I like the story. Well, no, I'm not doing my work then.
I'm with you. I like it.
Sorry to disappoint.
Well, let's see if we can, if this next quote unquote cursed object is actually cursed. This is a fun one. Bela Lugosi's mirror. Bela Lugosi is most known as a horror movie icon, starring in the infamous Universal monster movie Dracula, as well as many other horror and science fiction movies. Some say Lugosi practiced clairvoyance using scrying by staring into objects looking for messages. Okay, I have to stop there. What is scrying exactly? Could you explain?
So scrying is something that a lot of psychics may or may not utilize. I do it. I have quartz balls, like looking to a crystal ball. That can be scrying. Looking into a candle flame or a mirror, you're basically looking in something and you let yourself lose focus. So it kind of gets almost like a little blurry, like you're not focusing on the object, but you look at it and messages come to you and you can see things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. It is also said that Lugosi practiced mirror scrying using a mirror hung in his Hollywood Hills home. After Lugosi's death in 1956, his home was allegedly occupied by lawyer and B-movie producer Frank Saletri. Frank was murdered in that house in 1982, and the mirror was given to his family. Saletri's family claims that after receiving the mirror, they began to notice paranormal activity in their home. Saletri's niece believed that Lugosi's practices and her uncle's murder affected the mirror, so she later took it to paranormal investigator Zach Bagans, who now keeps it in his haunted museum. Oh, boy. Bagans and Salettri's niece, Cindy, claimed the mirror had a bad energy and her daughter was severely affected by the mirror, feeling bites on her neck when she would look into... What? When she would look into it and also see a dark entity inside the mirror.
Now,
Bites on her neck?
I just want to interject. Now, when it comes to mirrors, there is a lot out there. Like, you got to be careful with mirrors, like especially mirrors facing each other. So there is a lot of stuff about mirrors and, paranormal entities and energies. But continue.
Really? Okay. Well, all right. Bagans also claimed after taking the mirror, he had his own experiences that included seeing a ball of light that appeared on the wall opposite of the mirror, that traveled across the room and went inside the mirror. Okay. Sorry, for all you Zach Bagans fans out there, I don't know. Like, kind of...
We have our thoughts.
Yeah. As for the... Okay. There was also a rumor one of Lugosi's wives was murdered in front of the mirror, but he was never a widower as he divorced 4 times before his marriage to Hope Louise Lininger, his widow. As for the murder of Frank Salettri, in 1982, the week of his 58th birthday, he was shot in the head. His murder is still unsolved. Upon further reading, there seems to be some dispute about Salettri's actual ownership of Bela's home and mirror. Upon further investigation, the address of Salettri's home, where he was murdered, is listed as 6216 Primrose Ave in Los Angeles, California. Lugosi never owned or lived in a residence at that address, according to BelaLugosi.com. It is rumored that Salettri was a fan of Lugosi and claimed he owned one of Lugosi's homes, but none of this seems to have been proven. It seems Salettri did live at 6762 Wedgwood Place in 1966, claiming that was the home of Lugosi before he moved there, but there is no proof Lugosi lived at that residence either. As for him getting the mirror, it seems that even if Salettri did own one of Lugosi's homes, his widow, Hope, would have taken custody of his possessions. So, does Zach Bagans actually own Bela Lugosi's mirror? It seems highly unlikely. Another one. What the heck?
Well, again, I'm hearing this story, and I'm like, I'm reading about all this, and I'm like, okay, so like the guy got killed. That's interesting. And I look it up. So what happened to this guy? And then again, I'm pulling those threads.
Anytime I see Zach Bagans associated with anything, I just immediately, my wall of skepticism goes up, and I immediately, my eyes roll, like do the eye roll, like, okay, this guy, okay. I'm sorry, I think we've talked about this on a previous show, probably a couple of shows. I don't believe any of that. That dude is just, more power to him. He's made a successful career. He's got a thriving business, I'm sure. Good for him. But I don't believe any of it. Yeah. I'd love to. It'd be great if any of it was true or accurate, but I mean, come on. The more and more, like, geez. Anyway, all right. So the mirror is probably just based on everything we just said.
It's just a random mirror.
Just another mirror that bites on the neck, really? Why? Because he played Dracula, so now you're getting bites on... I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like, jeez. Are we going to have an actual cursed object on this show? Because everything we've gone over thus far, nothing seems like it's cursed.
Let's talk about Robert the Doll.
Oh, gosh. Okay, this one, okay. I think we might finally have one. So we saved the best for last.
Yeah, we've known about Robert for a long time.
Oh, my! I think I first heard about Robert the Doll on, like, the Art Bell show, like Art Bell's Coast to Coast, before George Norrie took over and ruined that show. When Art Bell was the host of Coast to Coast, I heard about Robert the Doll. And that must have been, back in the early 2000s. And then I've heard about it several times after that on Coast to Coast. But that's when I first heard about Robert the Doll. So this one is, and all the stories, let's get into it, because this one is...
So please chime in if I've missed something, because there's so much everywhere, and
there's so many stories.
I've tried to stick to, like, the main places. So, like, the majority of my information came from the Key West Historical Society.
And that's where he's at, right?
Well,
is
yeah.
So
the museum he's at is like for him, like it's overseen by the Key West Historical Society.
Okay.
So like they're also in charge of him. So it's like them in the museum. And then there was robertthedoll.org. So those were the two websites I tried to get the bulk of my information from. But I do put in like other things that I heard and things that I like, you hear stuff like, again, all this, anything can put anything online.
Yeah, and yeah, it's true. Anybody can write whatever they want. So it's important that you get multiple sources and hopefully different sources. And then that's the thing now, especially with the age of the internet, a lot of things that you're seeing, you might get 10 sources, but they might have all got their information from the same one source.
Exactly.
So it's very difficult indeed.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get into Robert the Doll. This one should be fun.
Known as one of the most haunted dolls, Robert the Doll has a backstory full of mystery, misfortunes, possible voodoo, and a whole lot of creepiness. Robert the Doll was created in Germany by the Steiff Company around 1904, and it is believed to be a one-of-a-kind handmade doll by the owner of the company. I also just want to interject here that I read a few different things. Some articles I found about this company said because of the size of the doll and the way it was made, the owner herself made it. And that also one of the other things said that this doll was not actually used, like it wasn't created to be sold in stores. It was created to be a display. So that's just a little more into the possible history of the doll. A young boy in Key West, Florida, Robert Eugene Otto, was gifted the doll by his grandfather. While the boy and the doll shared the same first name, the young boy went by Gene to those close to him. Robert the doll stands at about 40 inches tall and is stuffed with wood wool, and he wears a sailor suit. Gene and Robert became fast friends as much as a child and doll can, though it seemed as though Gene saw Robert as much more than just a doll. Legend speculates that voodoo played a part in Robert's formative years, while interviews with those close to the Otto family indicate that a great deal of emotional energy was placed upon the doll during Gene's lifetime. It is said that young Gene would shift blame onto Robert when he misbehaved, pointing to the doll and saying, "I didn't do it, Robert did it." One story that I remember hearing was that the Otto family had a housekeeper who practiced voodoo. One version of this story claims that she placed a curse on Robert because she hated the Otto family for the way they treated her, while another version claims she placed some type of protection spell on Robert to help keep Gene safe. There's also another story that claims a Bahamian girl was friends with Gene, and she's the one haunting the doll, but I really couldn't find much on this or any accurate story because I thought, did the girl die and she haunted the doll? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Okay.
As Gene and Robert grew together, Gene became a prominent artist. He moved into a home known as the Artist House in Key West. Robert could be seen positioned in the upstairs window, but neighborhood children would swear they saw Robert appearing and disappearing from the window and moving to different spots, which actually led to them finding a new route for school. When Gene died in 1974, his widow Anne leased their home, leaving Robert alone in the attic. I read that Anne did not like Robert and made Gene keep him in the attic, and that a woman by the name of Myrtle Reuter leased Gene's home and also became Robert's new caretaker. She even took Robert with her when she moved 6 years later. Visitors of Myrtle swore they heard footsteps in the attic and giggling. Some claimed Robert's expression changed when anyone badmouthed Gene in his presence. Myrtle claimed Robert would move around the house on his own, and after 20 years of antics, she donated him to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West. Though not initially on display, the museum decided to exhibit him after receiving visitors once word spread about Robert's new home. Once on display, cameras and electronic devices malfunctioned in Robert's presence. The museum has a list of rules for those who want to meet Robert, and those rules are: properly greet Robert the doll, respectfully ask permission to take his photo, politely say goodbye to Robert. And it's noted that saying thank you wouldn't hurt either. And I want to add on there because there's a lot of people who will say, no, if something's haunted, you should not be asking permission for things. You got to be careful with that. And I look at it like, you want to take a photo, you can, I guess, ask if you want, can I take your photo? I mean, I don't know. I guess it all depends on your mindset about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I read a Yelp review by one visitor that Robert will tilt his head if he wants to give you permission to take his photo.
What?
Yep, but I didn't read that anywhere else or hear of that.
A Yelp review.
Yeah.
That's actually funny that you would go and look at something like that. But that's I mean, it's kind of.
Oh, we're gonna go through reviews.
Oh,
We got reviews.
All right, because I was gonna say before we go into that, like, what do you think? Do you think he's haunted? Do you think it's a legit thing?
Let me just finish this before I get into the reviews.
Well, okay.
Because I have more information. Though Robert resides at the museum, he's still known to frighten many of his visitors. While so many flock to see him, he also gets a lot of fan mail, but it's not what you might expect. The letters he receives are mostly those of apologies. Apologies from past visitors who blame their misfortune on Robert after they failed to show him the respect he demands. Others write him asking for advice or to curse others who have wronged him, and some send him gifts of candy, money, and even cannabis.
Sweet.
So at the museum, there's a woman who's basically like his caretaker. She works for the museum. She handles all the letters. She handles like online stuff. So she does everything with him. And yeah, she like said in an article that
Does she like actually sit and read these letters
she
to
reads
the doll?
the letters.
To the doll, I mean?
I don't know. She didn't say she
I'm
reads it
sure
to the
she
doll.
might open them and read them, but I mean,
Yeah.
like, does she actually sit there and like read them to the doll?
But there's also
wow.
like people. So if you go to tripadvisor.com, there are even apologies to Robert there, and on Yelp, like all these different places, people are like publicly apologizing online. And they also share stories about what happened when they didn't take Robert's rules seriously. And I can't help but wonder, some of the apologies, did something really happen, or are they just doing that to be goofs?
Well, see, that's
it's hard
what
to tell.
That's what I'm wondering, because like when you were going through some of the things that would happen with Robert and how the legend came to be and whatever, kids saying that he would move from window to window. That's so easily done by somebody that's just like up in the attic and knows that kids are walking to school at a certain time, and they could just take the doll, and move it with their hand below, so nobody knows that they're there, can see them there. And again, windows back then, did people clean their windows the way we clean our windows now? Were they cloudy? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know.
What about the footsteps in the attic?
That's from the other owner, right? So people saying they hear footsteps and the laughing and giggling in the attic. Okay, that I don't know how you explain that, if that's legitimate, if they really did hear that. I don't know. But there's so many different stories that I heard throughout the years that I was like, okay, this is weird.
And what about the expression on his face changing? Could that just be somebody's perspective
that
of
could
seeing
be
something they want to see?
It could be that. It could be the way the light's hitting the doll. There's ways to explain it. Now, am I saying that this doll is not haunted? I don't know. I look at the thing and I get creeped out just looking at it. Like, and not a lot of stuff does that to me, but I just look at that thing, and it could be just because being younger, when I first heard the story, being more impressionable, not being as skeptical of things, still being young and naive. I don't know. But this one still, for whatever reason, I want to believe that this thing is haunted, because I want to believe that this kind of stuff is out there. But I am a little skeptical the older I get. But I would love to hear some of these stories, and let's see what people have gone through.
I just want to say, poor Robert the doll, being the scapegoat for other people's,
poor
stuff.
Inanimate object.
I know.
Listen to you.
So, these reviews I'm going to go over are from TripAdvisor. This first one is titled, "We Should Have Asked Robert's Permission," and it was reviewed on June 23rd of 2009 of the Fort East Martello Museum. It reads, "Last week, We were in Key West soaking up the history and wonderful sunshine. We are from New Hampshire and are not strangers to ghostly tales. Little did we realize that Robert the doll was more than just a tale. We went to the museum and was told by a very nice lady at the front desk to be sure and asked Robert's permission if we wanted to take his picture. I just laughed at such a silly statement. We went into the room where Robert was gazing at us. I snapped his picture not once but 3 times. We then proceeded into the gallery where it was air conditioned and there was some beautiful artwork on the walls. I found one painting that caught my eye and decided to take a picture of it. That's when it all started. As I snapped the picture, I looked at my camera and it said no images. All 50 plus pictures that we had taken in Key West were suddenly gone. We went parasailing the next day. The boat captain took a video of us in the air. Got back home, the disc was blank. Went to a camera store, and they could find no reason why our pictures were gone and why the disc was blank. I have also been hearing some strange noises during the night since I've been home. To all who may read this, please listen to this nice lady at the front desk at the museum. Ask Robert's permission if you want to take his picture. Another review from Rick from Pompano Beach, Florida, titled, Give Robert Respect or You May Regret It. And this was written on January 27th, 2021 from a visit in April of 2020. Rick writes, I would like to share my experience with Robert. I'm not really a superstitious type of person, but I do believe in the paranormal. Early April of 2018, I took my fiance and her oldest daughter to Key West, and we stopped by to see the old fort and to check out Robert the doll. When we first entered the room where they keep Robert, I made the foolish mistake of taking his picture while neglecting to heed the sign on the wall to ask for Robert's picture. As you can see in this photo, and he does put a photo at the bottom, as you can see in this photo, I was fooling around, acting as if I was going to punch him. Well, later that evening, my fiance and I get into an argument at Mallory Square and leave without seeing the sunset. It was her first time in the Keys. We very rarely argue, especially in front of her daughter. We go to leave and head back to Pompano, and as we're traveling back, someone throws a large rubber ball hitting the front of my car from a balcony of from a hotel balcony, nearly making me wreck. Not 5 minutes after that, a key deer buck walks in front of the car right at dusk, causing me to swerve and nearly make me lose control of the car. We make it safely back home later that night. A few weeks go by, and my father, who I cared for at the time, favorite aunt, passes away from a sudden illness. 2 months later, my father's health starts to suddenly change for the worse. Within 2 to 3 months after seeing Robert, Mike goes from walking and being very active, is now bound to a wheelchair and is in diapers. I think he means that his father goes from that. He ends up passing away almost exactly 6 months after that picture was taken. I moved from Florida and get a job in the railroad. 3 months after starting, I am being fired. Now my body is starting to fail me as well. Both my shoulders need surgery. I have severe chronic neck and back pain, and as of Sunday night, tore up my right knee. Now I cannot work and am in near financial ruin. Not saying all this because of some alleged cursed doll locked away in a glass box, but who knows? Take my advice. This is not a made-up story. If you go and visit Robert, please do not make the same mistake that I made. And the picture he put was him kind of holding his arm and his fist up to Robert, like a why I oughta kind of fist. Is it Robert? Maybe? Or is it just your own things that
I don't
happen
know.
in life?
I mean,
I don't know.
you could kind of you could explain that one away. I think. Yeah, you fought with was his girlfriend, fiance, whatever. Okay, that happens. You're traveling. Traveling is a stressful thing. Mm-hmm. Even though it's a vacation, vacations are stressful. Yeah. You very rarely get to relax. So yeah, I mean that could be. and somebody throwing a rubber ball off a balcony, well, people do those kind of things.
Deer.
Deer. I mean, deer
That
happens. That's nature. That's an unpredictable thing that can happen. An elderly person's health taking a turn for the worse. Now, did he say his favorite aunt or his dad's favorite aunt?
It sounded like his father's favorite aunt.
Because if it's his father's favorite aunt, that's probably elderly. So, yes, elderly people pass away all the time. And if his father's health took a turn for the worse,
if he was caring for him, well, obviously he wasn't probably in the best shape. So.
Yeah, I mean that stuff happens. So I don't know.
It stinks.
It stinks if you want to take that and put it on an inanimate object that you saw in a museum. Okay, fine, that helps you. It definitely adds to the legend of the doll if you're a believer. But I don't know about that one. But okay.
Know. All right, the next one is from Amaya from Miami, Florida, whose review titled, Ask Robert's Permission Before Taking a Photo. And this was from March of 2020. She writes, this review is my personal experience alone. So 2020 hasn't been the best year for most of us. I had quit my job out of state and decided to go home to Miami. I took some friends down to the Keys to show them around, and we ended up taking the Robert tour. I'm a very spiritual person, but my friends not so much. This tour was fun. Stories were intriguing, and all went well until we go to Robert. I decided I was just going to take his picture and nothing would become of it. A big part of me was just trying to be a savage in front of my friends. Bad call. My friends didn't believe in the curse, but I did deep down. Immediately as we walked away, in my heart, I was apologizing. When we got back on the tour bus, I felt a light tug on my hair. So I asked my friends which one of them did it. They both looked at me like I'm crazy and said neither one of them did it. So I kept it to myself. They then wanted me to text them the photo of Robert that I took, and I did. Again, wrong choice. One of my friends decided to buy the book based on him that we got at the tourist shop where the tour begins and ends. I got to read it myself to have a better understanding of Robert and felt sick for what I did, but I tried to forget about it. Fast forward a few months after the tour, my physical health has declined a lot, and I haven't had any issues for the majority of my life. I can't get a job anywhere, and I have a clean record. I had to have my vehicle repossessed, got robbed, losing my savings so quickly. My mental health hasn't been so good, and a few other bad things just keep happening one after another. Yes, we are going through a bad pandemic, but I've never had such events happen so quickly, so close together. So, Robert, if you're able to see this, I'm sorry. I should have asked your permission. I want to come see you face to face and apologize, but unfortunately, they aren't allowing you to have visitors. To anyone who plans to see him, don't make this mistake I did. Be respectful and you'll have a blast. Okay, now that's a couple stories now. Bad luck, health issues.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and anything at post 2020, you're talking health issues. Well, there's a lot of questions you can ask there. So
we're not going to get into it.
Yeah, not getting into that.
No. All right. The next one is from Gail M., titled "Not Scared of Robert the Doll," and this is from October 2021. Gail writes, "Wasn't aware I was supposed to ask Robert permission to take his picture. So far, I have had no ill effects, but the butterfly landing on me later in the week could be a reason for that, LOL." So I wanted to put that in there because this is somebody who said, I didn't ask permission and I don't have a problem. So I thought that was interesting.
Very interesting.
And I just have a couple of reviews from Yelp.
Okay.
Lacey S. from Florida gave 5 stars to the museum on June of 2019, writing, "Robert the doll is real. I took his photo without asking. Weird stuff has been happening at my house. I tried to think it's all coincidental, but this morning is the last straw. Something literally impossible happened. Robert damn transported my cat. I'm sorry, Robert."
What?
I don't know. She's blaming Robert for the disappearance of her cat.
So wait a second. Oh, I meant to ask you this before you started this review. Are there a lot of reviews on Yelp and all these? Are there a lot of them?
Of the museum, yes.
Okay.
The majority are people apologizing. Anything pertaining to Robert.
So there's
people
like
are
dozens of these on there. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will chime in before this last review I have. One of the common threads on these places where you review, like Yelp and TripAdvisor, a lot of people complained about an employee there, saying this older woman was really rude to them. And that was another common thread, that people gave bad reviews, not because of Robert the doll, but because of an employee's bad attitude and the way she spoke to people and treated them.
Was her name given?
No.
Nobody named her?
No.
So just complained about it, but nobody named her?
Nope. They said the older woman.
Interesting. I wonder if they don't wear name tags. Maybe that's why. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this last review I have is from Lisa Kay, who comes from Connecticut. She gave a 1-star review to the museum in September of 2015. Lisa wrote, "I am not sure how to review this place. I had no idea of the history of either the fort or Robert the doll. If you believe in spirits and light and energy, do not go here. If you are not sensitive to such things and do not believe, go if you want, but there isn't much to see. There are a few old antiques from the area. There is a very odd sculpture garden that is not tended to. I did not know the Robert the doll story. We just drove by this place and stopped in. The doll creeped me out completely. I found the old doll in the glass case disturbing. Prior to coming upon him, however, I had begun to feel ill. After seeing the doll, I could no longer continue the fort tour. I waited for my husband outside. As soon as we left, I felt better. The tour made me unsettled and sad and physically ill. My husband, however, felt nothing. He walked through the whole fort, found some items interesting. It was a very odd assembling of artifacts. That night, I Googled the Robert the doll and discovered his story." So this woman's saying, like, she saw Robert and, like, she started feeling sick to the point she had to leave. Now, the museum is actually an old fort. So if this is somebody who's sensitive to energies, it could be the history causing her, to feel something, maybe not necessarily Robert, or maybe a combination of everything.
Interesting.
Or I always, one of the things, like, it's Florida. Could there be like mold that like she's very sensitive to, or something in the air, something kind of musty? I don't know.
I wonder if so maybe the doll, right? What if it's, and I'm just thinking this, what if it's all the legend grows, right? Mm-hmm. You have this, this is just me spitballing here, but you have this lady, elderly lady or whoever, older woman who works at the museum, who talks to people a certain way, disrespects them, whatever people are saying on these reviews. What if she's intentionally negative to people to put them in a negative frame of mind before they go see the doll?
Well, I don't know, because other people say like how helpful the staff were. It was only like one woman I saw, a common thread, like the older woman.
That's what I mean.
And based off what she said, but she was like one of the stories was this woman came, like, it was a group of like adults with their kids, and the museum closes at 4, and they got there at like 4:31, and the woman was like giving them grief about like, nope, we're closed. And she's like, doesn't say anything outside. Well, last week, she's like, you close at 5. Well, we stop entry.
You just said they close at 4.
No, I'm sorry. Oh. I apologize. They close. The woman said they close at 5.
Oh. Okay.
And at 4:31, they came in. The woman's yelling at them saying they're closed because at 4:30 they stopped the tours and they stopped letting people in.
Okay.
And she was like, but you don't have that posted anywhere. Like, we didn't know. Like, she's there with her kids, and the woman was rude to all of them. Then another group of adults with kids came in, and one of the toddlers was being loud.
A toddler.
Yeah. And she kept saying, you need to control your child or you're going to have to leave. And like, she's like, my kids just being a kid,
My kid's a kid.
in a stroller.
Yeah, right.
So like stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like somebody who just doesn't care.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so throw that out.
Yeah.
But if you go into this and you have these people that are going in, everybody that had an experience, they're all going in, it seemed they're all going in believing in this thing already. And then it seems like they're just projecting their any of their issues or whatever on saying that it's the doll's fault. But what if, now, being hypothetical, let's say that Robert the doll, maybe it wasn't cursed by anybody or anything like that, but because so many people go and see it and so many people are fearful of it and they're projecting their negative energy and their fear onto the doll, is that maybe really giving it some kind of a power?
It could just be holding that energy that holds
People
an
are
aura of
projecting.
energy.
Yeah, because people are projecting it onto this object. So maybe people have created it to be something that really is haunted or cursed.
But it's like you have a mix of people saying like, I don't believe in curses. But then this happened. Well, then you gave yourself opening to believe it because something happened that might have nothing to do with it.
Right.
Now you open that door to letting that in. But again, let's go back to the history of the doll. What made it haunted? There's no real proof that there was voodoo, right? Those were just stories that we heard.
Right.
Now, the family says there was a lot of emotional energy happening. So is it possible a child's energy gets imprinted on this doll? So maybe the doll could be holding this emotional energy of this child
who could have been scared or frightened.
We don't know. I
angry.
mean, it could be like it never really talks about Gene's childhood. You know what? He became an artist. That's cool. What were his parents like? Why was there a lot of emotional turmoil? Like what?
Were the parents fighting a lot? Were they yelling at Gene a lot? What was Gene being physically abused? We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
So there, and again, when you think about it, now this child, which for young children to have a doll, especially years ago, people think, oh, boys don't have dolls, but that was very, very common in the very olden days.
Sure.
For a young child to have a doll, especially one that's supposed to look like them, that was something that I believe people who had money did often, for their kids. Sure. But as a child becomes older, they typically don't hold on to the dolls. Unless it's something you keep for sentimental value. Again, you store it away, but you don't keep it with you all the time, where Gene did. So it makes you wonder, was there something traumatic that happened to him that he needed that doll? That was his security blanket, so to speak. And, it says that his wife didn't like the doll. Is it possible she picked up on if there was traumatic energy, like the doll was holding? Could she be feeling that? And that's what upset her. I don't know. There's just so many possibilities and not enough information. But
the legend has grown throughout the years.
Yes, it does.
And it's definitely, like I said, I look at pictures of that thing and I'm like creeped out by it.
I'm not.
It's kind of creepy. I mean, it's a very basic looking, it's just an old doll. But I still look at it and I'm like, oh.
Well, you got to realize it's worn too.
Oh, yeah.
So like there's like
old.
divots in the face and everything.
Well, I'll say that one is cursed, but I don't know if it's what we think it is.
I'm going to say it's a possibility.
Yeah.
I'm not debunking that one yet.
I won't debunk that one yet. I am healthily skeptical, but still also I want to believe that one is cursed.
We need something, damn it.
Gotta have something.
Gotta have something. And there's still so many more. Like I still have, I think in my list, maybe like 7 or 8 more items.
Excellent.
So
I will say this though, if we ever go down to visit Robert the Doll, I will ask permission and I will do all those things. I'll play along just on the off chance that it is legitimate, it is real. I'm not taking a chance so I can look like a tough guy. Oh, I'm not asking permission for it. I'll play along. I'll be respectful because really, why wouldn't you be?
Well,
why wouldn't you be?
Again, I'm a person who talks to like rocks and trees, inanimate objects, because I feel they hold energy. But Yeah, I know we wanted to go. We were in Florida and we were trying to
We
plan
were
out.
trying to plan to
We
go,
wanted
but
to carve
it
out
ended up
like
not working out.
a trip to Key West just to go visit, and we weren't able to go. I know the way I am. I definitely just want to see what energy I feel coming from the doll.
Well, that's my thing. I was thinking, it's funny you said, because I was thinking that while you were speaking of it. It's like, if we ever go, because I don't really get those kind of feelings like you do, but I'd be interested to see how you felt close to it, because you pick up on that kind of stuff and you have a pretty good sense about that kind of stuff. Do you remember that house we went into when we were looking for houses
Yep.
many years ago? And there's a house we went in, and it was just creepy. I think we've talked about it before
Yeah.
on a previous episode, but it was just creepy. And you were like, we have to leave. I don't get a good feeling. And even that one, I was like, this is weird. This doesn't feel right.
What had happened? Let's go back to that, because that's just fun to talk about. We go check out this house, and from the outside it looks fine. And I go upstairs because I want to see the bedrooms. And the way it's set up is it's a cape, and so it has like the kind of dormer like ceiling and wall, and they use that space as like a kind of attic crawl space. So there's like a door, but it's not like it wasn't like a full ceiling door. It was maybe like 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
And you open the door. So I'm in the bedroom and I'm walking around the house and I'm just getting like this weird gut feeling, this weird vibe. And I go up in the bedroom and I stand in front of the door and I just get a bad feeling. But of course, I want to like open the door because I'm looking at this house, and I open the door and like this air kind of comes through, which, you open a door, air can come through, especially if it's drafty. But this awful feeling just went through me, and I was like, nope. Nope, not doing this. Like, this place has bad energy. And as we're going back downstairs and kind of sort of looking, but trying to get out, we notice the doors have locks on the outside, like to keep somebody inside. And we thought that was really weird. And my dad, who's now a retired police officer, had said that sometimes what drug dealers would do is they'll put locks on different areas. So like if people are coming in from a different way, they can't get through. So they'll have locks on both sides of the doors so they can stop the police. It'll kind of detain them or delay them from getting to them so they can try to escape. But it was just really weird, like the way the locks were on like both sides of the doors.
Oh, yeah, that was the thing that threw me off. Like, why are there locks on what? Why would you want to lock yourself in it's just weird the way it was set up. Yeah. And that was what you got that bet, and you were like, nope, we're out of here. And I'm like, okay. And I felt weird in there too. It was just, I can't explain it.
Even the realtor we had,
even the realtor was like, yeah, this feels seems strange in here. So we were just like, let's get out of here.
It's like it almost made me physically sick.
Yeah,
being in there.
Yeah, I remember you were saying that at the time.
Yeah, like I felt cold. I felt kind of clammy. The energy, it was like draining. And I was just like, nope. So
not living here.
and that's the thing. I basically like, I can feel things, and I've worked on not being so sensitive to everything for my own protection, but yeah, definitely. I guess when it comes to a potential cursed or haunted object, just, go with what feels right. And if you even get an inkling of like, don't mess with it, don't mess with it.
Yes. So on that note, I think it's time to say goodbye. Until next time, I am the Golden Greek, Alex Arion. I've been joined as always by my beautiful, lovely, gorgeous wife, Monique.
And you've been listening to the Homewrecker podcast.
We love hearing from and interacting with our hearers and watchers. Feel free to reach out to us on Twitter
at HomewreckerPod.
You can also visit our website,
homewreckerpodcast.com,
where you can check out past episodes and pick up some Homewrecker podcast gear from our online store.
Also, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're hearing or watching our show. That way you can be notified whenever a new episode drops. We're on all major podcasting platforms, and you can check out the video versions of our show at YouTube and Brighteon.
You can also find Monique in a few places online as well.
I'm on Twitter @_Monique Giselle_. If you're interested in a tarot reading, organite, incense, candles, and other cool things, you can go to my website, tarotbymonique.com. Or if you're interested in hypnotherapy, you can go to innerstandingshypnosis.com to schedule a free 20-minute consult. And follow me on Twitter at MoniquePCHT. And Alex, how can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at @TheAlexArion, and you can check out my website, alexarionfitness.com.
And if that's too much to remember, we get it. That's why we put it all in our show notes.
Thanks for spending your time with us, and we appreciate all of your support.
We do. Thank you. We love you. Many people are unaware just how much hypnotherapy can help them, or think it's only to help lose weight or quit smoking. But there is so much more hypnotherapy can do. It can help with stress, anxiety, insomnia, phobias, performance enhancement, connecting with your spirit guides and higher self. You can even discover past lives and your life between lives. Heal traumas, break habits, find your deepest truth, or just have fun discovering who you really are, all from the comfort of your home. I'm Monique Pliakis. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I want to help you. Schedule a free consult by going to www.innerstandingshypnosis.com. That's INNERSTANDINGSHYPNOSIS.com. Inner Standings Hypnosis. Find your power and ignite your inner light.